Heyo, and welcome back to Shovel Knight, Shovel of Hope. In this part we are going through the stranded ship, which is this game's ice level. And that does mean some slippery, slidey ice mechanics, so you gotta be careful, you gotta make sure you're not just gonna slip off into the abyss, into the bottomless pits that are around. Because so far all the bottomless pits I've found seem to be fine if you're paying attention. Like, they don't seem to abuse bottomless pits, they're not placed unfairly, but that is on the prerequisite that you are paying attention. So, you know, you want to have a look out where you are on the screen, you want to make sure you're not just going to slide off the edge, and, you know, it's basic ice level fare. And it's sort of got kind of a unique ice level look to it, because it's got the usual colouring that you would expect from an ice level on like the floor and the foreground, but you got a bit more of a darker kind of thing going on in the background. You got your pinks and your blues, and you know, it's kind of got enough to keep it distinct from being just another 2D game ice level. Because I will say, like, as someone who really likes aesthetics in games, just paying attention to the use of colour, paying attention to the use of certain textures and whatnot, ice levels tend to be some of my favourites to look at, because there's just so much you can do to make an ice level look really pretty. You might think on the surface that ice levels, like, you're just going to have snow, you're just going to have ice, you're just going to have like whites and blues everywhere, but really ice is done best in games when it's contrasting other colours on the screen. At least for the most part. Like, there are some games that do ice just as an ice level and it's fine, like think Cool Edge in Sonic Unleashed. So, like, pretty much everything on the screen in Cool Edge is white with the occasional bit of blue. More so in the Wii version. The Wii version of Unleashed does amp up the blue colour scheme a little bit more, but you know, it does it really well. But then there's other games that do ice levels more by the numbers. If you think Mega Man 1 has Iceman Stage, which is okay. You know, I've seen much prettier ice levels out there. Then Mega Man 6 has Blizzard Man Stage, which is a little bit more interesting, but still a little bit on the basic side. I suppose, like, as an NES game, it's doing the best it can, and that's one thing that I can consistently say for all the Mega Man games from, I'd say, maybe Mega Man 3 onwards, that they really do their best when it comes to visuals for NES games. Because the NES, it's very limited in its colours, obviously. It's a very old system, it's quite basic by today's standards. But some games really do wonders with it, and I think the later NES Mega Man games are a great example of that. Because if you compare the amount of detail in like Mega Man 4, 5 or 6 to, say, even some of Nintendo's own first party games, because you think the Zelda games on the NES, Zelda 1 and 2, and even all the Mario games up until I'd say 3, they all are very safe, I want to say. Like, not necessarily bad, although Zelda 1 does look a bit bad, if I'm being honest there. But, like, you know, if you're comparing the way the artwork is used, like the limited pixel resources are used, Capcom did a fantastic job with the later NES Mega Man games, which would kind of go out the window a little bit when they got to Mega Man 7, which I will honestly say, I know we've done a playthrough of this a long time ago, like on FlameHisWorld before, but Mega Man 7, I don't really like that game. I feel like it's kind of a step down from like what 6 had built up, because 6 is one of the prettiest NES games, and 7 is one of the most basic SNES games. And I suppose, especially when you're going to compare it to Mega Man X, which is amazing in both gameplay and presentation, you know, like, it doesn't really stand a chance. I fucking love Mega Man X. It's arguably one of the best games ever made, I'd say. But coming up here, we have a new power-up from Chester. And this seems like the kind of power-up that Shovel Knight could use to be kind of an annoying dick to everyone around him if he so desired. This is a giant Warhorn. And basically what the Warhorn does, as I'm about to demonstrate against these irritating flying fuckers, it just is a not entire screen wipe, because there's like that little radius of where it hits, but it's basically a screen wipe. Like, you cover most of the screen with it, so any enemies that pose any kind of immediate threat to Shovel Knight, they'll be caught by the Warhorn. I will say, so far, I haven't got too much use from the Warhorn, because I tend to be a creature of habit, and there's also the fact that the Warhorn's quite expensive on your magic, but it does seem like the kind of weapon that could help you out in a pinch. And this little section here, I did attempt to use the Warhorn to wipe them guys on the ladders in one of my earlier takes. It didn't work out too well. And what you saw me do there of just hitting the little rainbow carpet thing, I don't know what it's meant to be really, but that's a lot more consistent when it comes to actually hurting them guys on the ladders. There's these sections here where they can be kind of annoying in general, but you know, like, I will say this is the level that I kinda had the most difficulty with up to this point. At this point in recording the commentary, I've recorded the footage for both this level and Tinker Knight, which I'll be going to next. This level gave me a bit of trouble, and Tinker Knight also gave me a bit of trouble, but I can't say I'm surprised. Like, I am on the tail end of the Order of No Quarter stages at this point, so I was kind of expecting to get a little bit more difficult. And granted, I will say, I feel like some of the difficulty is more about my desire to beat each level without dying. Because you can just plough your way through, which I've been doing in some of my practice runs. I've just been, like, you know, just restarting the checkpoints, and it's not really too difficult. You know, I mentioned in the last part, you get unlimited lives, so you haven't got to worry about game overs. And the checkpoints are quite liberally placed. So if you're just playing through casually, I don't think there's any sections, at least up to where I've played, where you're likely to get stuck. There's some sections where you'll have to just maybe try a few times. It might take you a little while to beat certain levels, but you know, like, it's never unfair hard, and it's never annoying hard. Like, granted, I have still got one of the levels left from the Order of No Quarter to possibly prove me wrong. I haven't gone through Propeller Knight stage yet. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. I haven't actually seen gameplay of his level in a very long time, although I seem to recall it having a bit of a wind gimmick, so that can be a little bit foreboding when it comes to platformers. Sometimes a wind mechanic can, you know, cause you some problems. Depends on how it's integrated, really. I'll have to wait and see until I get there to see whether it's gonna be challenging or tough or whatever. But, you know, like, this game seems to be pretty good at addressing the little annoyances that you tend to get from a lot of other platformers, so it should be alright. I should be able to get through it, no problem. But, ladies and gentlemen, here is a Polar Knight himself, and Polar Knight seems a little bit different to a lot of the other bosses that we've seen, well, all the other bosses we've seen up to this point, in terms of the Order of No Quarter at least. And that is because it's kind of implied that these guys knew each other, that they had some kind of friendship or allegiance before Polar Knight joined the Order of No Quarter, and it kind of makes sense actually if you look at, like, Polar Knight's method of attack, because he's got Snow Shovel here, so maybe he mastered a similar kind of shovelry to Shovel Knight. It's always a possibility. And yeah, you can die there. He is digging up instant death spikes, so you want to kind of keep on the move, and if you're not too good at, like, moving around quickly, you might want to have the phase locket set up in reserve and maybe just take a slower approach. I'm not entirely sure, because I sort of won by lucking out there. I was spamming the Chaos Sphere and it just kind of worked for me. I don't know how reliable that approach is. Maybe you can just knock it out easy enough, but I kind of get the vibe that was a bit of a lucky break there. But up next, I'm going to go to another one of these overworld bosses. This is another boss designed by one of the designers for a day. This is the Phantom Striker. And Phantom Striker was designed by Stephen Ness. Again, as partly director for a day, as I said. And Phantom Striker's bio, it says, he's a lone warrior. Phantom Striker appears to those that he deems worthy of challenging him. Light on his feet and wielding a fencing foil, this enigmatic fighter also controls the power of lightning. Always in search of an honourable battle, Phantom Striker may reward those who fare well against his cyclonic charge. So he's your zappy boy, and he's not too difficult. Like, your main deal is, you know, like not letting him hit you with his fencing rod, not letting him zap you, and when he does that attack where the things are shooting in off the side of the screen, I find that a lot of the time movement just helps in general. If you stay still, you're vulnerable. If you move around plenty, then you're not so much. So that's my strategy when it comes to these bosses. I feel like that was a much more basic strategy to get down than, say, when we were fighting Baz, because Baz had like his swing attack, and Baz could be a little bit challenging if you didn't really realise that you could hit him with your drop shovel attack as he's swinging. Because I will admit, I was a little bit unsure about that when I first fought Baz, and then I kind of realised that actually if I just wing it with the drop shovel, then I can kind of knock him down without too much of an issue. Yeah, come on, Bard, give me the money. I know that I'm collecting these as kind of a favour, but if you're offering money, I'm gonna take it, you know? So yeah, this is gonna be a bit of a slow spot just to wrap up the end of this part here, because I am gonna be doing another one of the little side quest things in a minute. But you know, I've got to go through, I've got to power myself up a bit more, and it is so difficult to come up with commentary for this, like, because it's basically the same thing every time, but I feel like I should probably just show off what I'm doing where. It's something I've been doing more and more in recent times, just to kind of contextualise what you see in the screen. I'm powering up my magic, and I feel like I've got about as much magic as I'm going to need. I'm at 100 magic points now. I fucking love that launcher thing. Like, it's such a funny animation just seeing Shovel Knight getting flipped, like, properly yeeted across the entire fucking map. Yes, this is just a little mini level based on the darkness mechanic from the Lich Yard. It's not really that difficult, you just, like, there are bottomless pits though. That's the part that might cause you some issues, but your best bet here is to take it slow. Remember that you have no timer, and if it takes you a few little rounds, a few cycles just to realise where the bottomless pits are, it's not the end of the world, you know, like, just try not to destroy too much of the ground. Watch out for this skeleton fucker here, because obviously knockback is an issue, and then, you know, you're basically at the end once you've fought that guy there. And yeah, that's pretty much us for this part. So, ladies and gentlemen, join me next time where I'll be going through the Clockwork Tower. See you then.